Hello there.
Hi, everybody.
Hi there. And sorry about that. A little bit of technical difficulty, just seeing if our systems have straightened themselves out. Just checking here because I'm not seeing us live on Facebook, only on YouTube.
Right.
Well, sorry about that. For you folks on YouTube, yeah, the software that makes it possible for us to do everything that we do had a recent update, and it seems to have gone wonky on us. Sorry, I'm just going to see if I can't straighten out that Facebook issue.
Yeah, in the meantime, I can tell you about my day. So let's see, we got some wonderful chatting going on in YouTube. And yeah, hopefully we won't have to restart. Yeah, Robin, make sure you get enough sleep, on those days for Sunday, get up at 9 a.m. instead and go to bed at 1. All right, there you go. That fixes that. And Daniel says, yes, burgers. So we don't have a cheeseburger right now for you, but I'm sure we will when we see you next time. Let's see here.
Yep, definitely not working. Should we just redirect everybody on Facebook to YouTube? I know you got a few folks who only catch us there.
Yeah, although Jim is actually on YouTube.
Is he?
So...
Well, let's do it. Let's do the show live. We will upload it after the fact.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just post on your
yeah, if you could go ahead and post the YouTube link, or just let people know the YouTube link is all over my wall in my usual act of shameless self-promotion. And let's start from scratch. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Happy Sunday, friends and lovers. Thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Acer. 15 minutes after, 14 minutes, 6 seconds after the fact. Yes, I got the pro studio clock running back there. Hello, you good people, friends, lovers, technical issues. Folks out there, I know our ARC UK producer, Daniel, is on the line or in the chat, and so he would know. OBS recently had a big update, and it broke things.
Breaking things.
Yeah,
breaking a lot.
I had actually put off the update. You can say, no, don't do it later. And then I finally ran it today and ran the program ahead of time just to make sure that you good people would not be inconvenienced by this upgrade. It turns out the software didn't choke until I told it, okay, start streaming the episode.
Thanks, software.
That's some rude noise. You would think, it would tell you right when you started up, hey, issues, you might want to fix this before you try to go live. But on Sunday, September 18th, 2022, this fine day, it went wonky. Thank you for joining us. Sunday, September 18th, 2022. This is the 261st day, 261 of this your best year yet. If this has not been your best year yet, well, summer's almost over. You got to make that happen. You've got 104 days left to make 2022 outstanding. Christmas is in 98 days, Halloween in 43 days. We've talked enough about that, although we'll get into it again next time around. But autumn is in just 4 days. 4 days. You got 3 days of summer left. Well, depending on how you're counting them. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, of course, you're thinking, oh man, I've only got 3 days until winter. Until spring. On this date, September 18th, 1981. See, this goes out to
a good year for music.
Yeah, this goes out to our Canadian watchers and listeners, Chris and Stephanie, and you all know who you are. 20,000 car parking lot. On this date in 1981, Canada's West Edmonton Mall sets the parking lot record with a 20,000 car parking lot, made the Guinness Book of World Records as the largest parking lot, for you folks in the UK, that's a car park, in the world. The mall has held other records too. At one time or another, it's been the world's largest shopping mall with 5.2 million square feet, which is 48 city blocks, the world's largest indoor amusement park, and the world's largest indoor water park, which includes the world's largest indoor lake and the world's largest indoor wave pool. Now, we've talked about shopping malls on this show before because it's 2022 and the rise of online retailers has meant, in some places, the decline of the shopping mall. But no, not at all. The West Edmonton Mall still goes strong. Has more than 800 stores, 100 restaurants, 19 movie theaters.
Wait, now?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, this was 81 when it set the record.
In Edmonton?
Yes. What are you talking? You talk about Canada like a little country like Canada. They're big.
Do they have 800,000 people? Or 800 people for each store?
Y'all dissing our friends to the north.
Sorry.
800 stores, 100 restaurants, 19 movie theaters, a full-sized ice skating rink where the Edmonton Oilers occasionally practice, 2 hotels, one of which boasts elaborately themed rooms, the Hollywood Room, the Polynesian Room, the Igloo Room, the Canadian Rail Room, the African Room, the Arabian Room. I guess that's for all the Nasirs out there. A chapel. There's a chapel in the shopping mall.
Wow.
Well, that makes sense. You have these small wedding chapels, so if you've got the world's largest mall, they would also have that. They may not be the world's largest at this point, but they are still going strong. And yes, it was on this date that the world's largest parking lot, or car park, with room for 20,000 cars came into... I love it. I love that there are still shopping malls, because we've told you before, and we'll tell you again, we go to see Santa every year.
Yes.
At the shopping malls. We've got a couple of malls that are our favorites. So as we've seen some malls come into decline, and that's a sad story, we like to point out, no, a lot of malls are still going strong, and that's cool. There's nothing like that retail hands-on experience. Also on this date, we wish a happy birthday to the late Greta Garbo. And this is where I need your help in the chat.
That's my close-up.
Because Amy and I have been watching movies lately.
Yeah.
And we need your help with which movies to watch. Now, the esteemed writer Jim Ashley has given us some great recommendations, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, some pretty intense ones, actually.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into that. But specific to the question of Greta Garbo, we've only seen Queen Christina, which we heartily recommend.
Yes. As
well as Ninotchka. Of course, if you've never seen Ninotchka, it's a must-see. Probably the best place to start if you like mostly lighthearted, although sometimes very serious films. Yeah. Now, we've seen Grand Hotel, and we've seen Anna Karenina.
Right.
And that's it. As far as I recall, that's the only 4 Greta Garbo films we have seen. So the question is, for those of you who know better than we do, what next? What's the next Greta Garbo film to see?
I think we saw Camille, didn't we? Where she dies or something?
She dies in all of them. No, most of the Greta Garbo films are...
She does not die in Queen Christina.
No, that's why we always recommend Queen Christina and Ninotchka.
She like the ones where Greta
because
Garbo
those are the happy
die.
ones. Yeah.
I like those.
And apparently she doesn't in the film Two-Faced Woman, the last film of her career, although that one got mixed reviews.
Yeah. What about Mata Hari?
Haven't seen it. Don't know.
Me neither, yeah.
So tell us in the chat, please, if you would. The chat on YouTube, because apparently Facebook's not working. Yes, tell us. I'm just going to try this one more time just because I'm a glutton for punishment or a glutton for gunishment. No, well, we are only on YouTube. Okay, so yes, what is the next? How come on YouTube I get so many chat comments that say, this message is being held for review. Do you want to show it or not?
Huh.
And they're always by the same poster, whose name I won't mention because I said last time that I wouldn't. Anyway, yes, tell us the next Greta Garbo film to see. And if you haven't seen any Greta Garbo films, or if you haven't seen Queen Christina and Ninotchka, that's where you should start. If you're anything like Amy and me.
Oh, James is in the YouTube chat, and he says, Mata Hari is fun.
It's fun.
Ooh.
Well, then I've got to see it. Good. That'll be our next place to go.
Great.
Excellent. And also on this date, the 18th of September, happy birthday, not date, day, because he's still alive, to Steven Pinker. The great sociologist, or whatever category you choose to put him in.
I hope he does something selfish for himself on his birthday.
I hope he does. You know, he's a brilliant man. He's written important works. He's not philosophically where I would like him to be, but he's so good, I hate to even complain about that. So, yeah, if you have not already read my 3 favorite Steven Pinker, the ones that he would say are not his most important books, but his most important books are the ones I disagree with him on substantial issues. The ones I don't disagree with much about, The Better Angels of Our Nature, Why Violence Has Declined was the first one I read.
Enlightenment Now.
Enlightenment Now
Right.
was the second one, came after, the first was 2011. Enlightenment Now, The Case for Reason, Science, Humanism, and Progress, 2018. And then most recently, and one I actually reviewed on one of our shows, Rationality. What it is, why it seems scarce, why it matters. And we compared Steven Pinker's perspective on rationality with that of Ayn Rand. I thought that was a good episode. Link in the show notes. But yeah, outstanding works. Happy birthday, Steven Pinker, 67 years old, going strong. Finally, one more happy birthday on this date, born 1975. Damn, practically a kid compared to me. Jason Sudeikis.
Oh.
Ted Lasso. If you haven't seen Ted Lasso, what's wrong with you? No, I mean, if you haven't seen Ted Lasso, it is a must-see television
it's really
series.
a lot of fun.
Nothing else would have made me sign up for Apple TV. I mean, I'm a big Apple fan. I love my Apple products, but I don't need an Apple television network. Well, it turns out I do, because that's how you get to watch Ted Lasso. Also on this day, it is National Cheeseburger Day, and this is question number 2 for you in the chat. Because I want to know if you have a favorite cheeseburger, whether that's a burger at a particular restaurant.
No.
Are you a Five Guys or Ford's Garage? We'll talk about that.
I don't do just cheeseburgers. I have to have them fancy. So you have to, the bare minimum for me is bacon cheeseburger.
Okay,
I don't
well,
know if you
that's reasonable.
I don't know if you knew this about me, actually.
No.
But, a nice cheeseburger with pepper jack or some mango habanero cheese with some
Mango habanero.
with some jalapeno peppers, things like that. That's delicious.
It's funny because we seem to be late. We're in southeast Michigan, in Motown, and we seem to be late to the party with some of these. So, for example, when Five Guys finally came to town, everyone's like, oh yeah, we've had them forever. They're all right. And more recently, when Ford's Garage came to town, I did not know until investigating it that Ford's Garage started out in Fort Myers, which makes sense, where Henry Ford used to hang out with Thomas Edison. But we got them fairly recently, and it turns out that 4 more of them are opening in southeast Michigan soon. We had dinner with Scott Holleran, whose Substack
Yes.
you should sign up for.
That's right. It was a lot of
on
fun.
Monday night.
A lot of fun hanging out with him.
We
took
got
him
there.
on a tour of the museum.
The museum, Greenfield Village.
And the Greenfield Village. And it was great fun.
Now, you wouldn't know it, but those aren't related. Any of those 3. It turns out Greenfield Village and the Henry Ford Museum of American Innovation is associated with Henry Ford, of course. It's his stuff, and the Ford Motor Company, but they are, it's not owned by them. It turns out Ford's Garage isn't either. Ford's Garage was a restaurant concept that somebody started down in Florida and put up all sorts of Ford Motor Company related knickknacks that he liked.
And you know why? It's because there's the Fort Myers Laboratory.
Right.
Down there in Fort Myers.
Yeah.
It has the laboratory that Henry Ford and Thomas Edison worked in, plus their separate summer homes down there. Really fascinating. You should definitely go there if you haven't been.
So the guy is running this restaurant. It's going really, really well. Ford's Garage with all the Ford Motor Company, knickknacks and logos and stuff. And one day he gets a call from the Ford Motor Company legal team.
Oh, I didn't know this. Okay.
And as he tells the story, he was obviously very nervous about that. He hadn't arranged any licensing or anything ahead of time. So he gets a call from the Ford Motor Company legal team, and the Ford Motor legal team says to him, whoever the representative was, says, "We love your restaurant, and we want to license it the logo to you and make sure that you're able to use it without any problems.
How nice is that?
How awesome is that?
I didn't know that. That's wonderful.
They weren't looking to charge him for it or anything.
That's great.
And, I'm sure they wanted to codify it, made sure it didn't get used in improper ways, but he was floored. He thought that was great. So it turns out, he's franchised it. There's now Ford's Garage restaurants around the country. If you haven't had a burger from there, that could be on your list of favorite burgers.
They're good.
Good stuff. Yes, so happy National Cheeseburger today. If you've got them, smoke them.
Oh, by the way, yesterday was Happy Constitution Day. Constitution Day of the United States.
Is that the date it was ratified?
It was the day that...
We'll know in just a moment, won't we? Or you're not going to click that? Oh, you are. Okay.
The signing.
Signing.
Okay.
Yeah, the signing.
Yeah.
Good.
The signing.
Good. You'd think I would know that.
September 17th.
Yes. And finally, on this date, it's Happy Wife Appreciation Day.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yes, that's right. Or as Amanda put it, happy house, happy spouse. Yes. Or as I put it, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
I like being appreciated.
That's right. National Wife Appreciation Day, celebrated on the third Sunday of September, gives those of us who are lucky enough to have wives, or no wives, they're girlfriends of wives and friends of wives, an extra chance to show them how much they mean to us.
Thank you. Give me Pinky.
Pinky. Our wives keep us grounded and centered. They inspire us to work hard, play hard, and to always have something to bring to the table to show that we're improving ourselves. Well, that description comes out of one of the holiday websites, but I liked it. It's kind of related to that great movie line, you make me want to be a better man. So shout out to my wife and to all the wives out there and to all of you who have wives or know wives or have daughters who are wives or anybody filling that role. We've done so many shows on marriage, and we've talked about marriage so much on this show that that to me is irresistible. There was a Facebook post that came up about that recently. But first, listening to this week. What have we been listening to this week?
You've been listening to things. I have not been listening to anything except for flamenco music.
So in the YouTube description, you'll find the show notes have already been posted. And if you look at the show notes, if you look at the description, you will see a bunch of great links that if you haven't heard or seen these yet, you've got to check them out. The first one was they just released Lisa Van Dam's talk from Ocon 2022. Talk on Victor Hugo and Edmond Rostand.
Yes.
Called Hugo Rostand Hernani and How to Be a Romantic. It's a bit of a chuckle at the beginning because she observes that the written program for the conference originally said how to be romantic, but they're not wholly unrelated, being a romantic, a romanticist, and being romantic. So that was all good. That is a talk you've got to hear. It's one of those Lisa Van Dam talks that'll put a lump in your throat, a tear in your eye at several points, and at the end of it, in honor of National Wife Appreciation Day, this is the kind of talk that makes you want to be a better man or a better woman.
Right.
You will want to live a little larger after hearing this talk, and it's so good.
Well, my favorite part of the talk, and I won't give any spoilers away, but she talks about an experience of serendipity, of doors opening up for her, things that were unusually hospitable in her journey, and I really liked that.
It's the secret. I only joke about that because it came up on Friday. Speaking of things to listen to and watch to, it came up on my show with James Valiant. We did an episode that I really enjoyed. I think it was really good, called Purpose, Productivity, and Passion. We talked a bit more about the objectivist and rational perspectives on career and career pursuit. And one of the super chats that came up in the chat was, I'm hearing a lot about The Secret lately, and what do you think of all that? So I did give my perspective on that, and that was kind of fun. So it's no surprise that if Lisa Van Dam was pursuing her passions, she started to find doors opening for her in various ways. It turns out it's not quite as woo as it sounds, and it's unfortunate that people approach it that way.
Right,
That if you have a single-tracked devotion to something, and you actually put the work into it, you achieve it. It's the craziest thing. Who'd have thought?
Well, it's one of those issues that I find that it's important to focus on those experiences that you have where everything goes right, because then you can use that to kind of maybe set a framework for a new endeavor that you're undertaking, and you're not just expecting the worst.
Yes.
And and that helps you along to achieve your goals in that way.
Yeah. It sounds primacy of consciousness, but it's absolutely the opposite of that. For example, in the book Pollyanna, when our heroine observes that if you spend your time looking for the good in people, you're generally going to find it. And the opposite is true too. In fact, Ocon recently also released the video Yaron Brook presented, Reasons to be Optimistic Today. And I had already talked about that one before, but it's good to see the videos out there. Give that one a listen. Link in the show notes. There's also a Yaron Brook show tonight for those of you who are Yaron Brook fans.
It might not happen, Robert.
It might not happen?
Right, because is he in Puerto Rico? Because they have a blackout right now.
No, he's not. He is in Seoul, South Korea.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
and that's why I am mentioning it, because it's kind of, it should be fun. It's going to be one of his road trip discussions that he has. The topic is officially the past, present, and future of Asia, but I'm sure we'll get an update on his road trip as well. Now, completely separate from that, I enjoyed the video that was posted this week by Rick Beato on the top 20 one-hit wonders of the 1980s. And the only reason I mention that is because I've talked about one-hit wonders, but I have a passion for one-hit wonders. I love a good one-hit wonder. There's a reason why an artist who doesn't otherwise necessarily make it big crafts one song that hits the top 40, often goes to the top of it. So I loved it. I enjoyed it. I had a disagreement with a couple of them, but definitely worth a watch. The last thing I have listed is Compañeros de Flamenco.
Compañeros de Flamenco.
Super Sat Art Day. Oh, this was the video from earlier this year.
Yeah, that you posted.
That I posted. So if you saw Amy's recent videos in which she was actually in front of the Detroit Institute of Arts folks in the big room, the what's it called again? The
Diego Rivera
Hall.
Kind of grody artwork.
Amy doesn't like Diego Rivera, but the hall is still kind of magnificent, and it was a great place to see them perform this one dance.
Yeah.
But if you saw that, you got a taste for it, you thought one dance is not enough. I have just posted on Amy's Facebook wall that session from earlier this year in which there are several dances well presented. So
I would say it's on your wall, not mine. I don't think it's on mine.
Should be. But maybe not. Either way, you will find it on my wall as well.
Oh, maybe it is.
Yes. So there you go.
There it is.
Before I wrap up what we're listening to this week, I have to mention, shout out to Jim Ashley, who often uses movies that he has insights into in order to inform a lot of his discussions about life and philosophy. Those of you who know Mr. Ashley already know this, and so we've been finding movie suggestions from him. Yeah,
and they often come out of my Meeting for Art sessions that I have on Sunday afternoons and Tuesday evenings.
Yeah.
Let me know if you want anything. I'll actually post Meeting for Art on the 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir on the Facebook page.
And how long does Meeting for Art last?
A half an hour.
Half an hour.
That's it. No more, no less.
Sounds quick and fun.
It is really quick and fun, and it really lifts me up. It boosts my spirits, and it boosts everyone's spirits that's on it. And we talk about creative process. We talk about particular projects that we're working on. We encourage each other. It's just a wonderful thing.
Yes. And art is used in that broadest sense of creatives. So some of the folks who get together are writers. Some of the folks who get together are actually craftsmen. Crafting, for example, furniture, woodworking. So if you're creative at all, I'm not very creative, but I'm on there. So the bar is pretty low.
Robert shares his chalk art. Which is really cool.
Yeah. and crayons. That gives you an idea of the level I'm functioning at. So
Love
yes,
it.
you should definitely join in for that. But yeah, this week we saw The Stranger.
That's the old one with Edward G. Robinson.
Yes, and Orson Welles.
Orson Welles, and I'm forgetting the lady's name.
Oh, Loretta Young.
Loretta Young. Oh wow! I mean, it was
It was
pretty good.
intense.
It was intense, but it was good.
It was sort of noir.
Yes, it was noir.
Elements of, well, I wouldn't call it a war movie, but war period movie.
Right.
And intense.
It was an Edward G. Robinson.
Yes.
Anything you see him in is just wonderful. But I should say Orson Welles really played an excellent psychotic villain. It's the only way I can put it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with Orson Welles, so if you're like me and you only know Citizen Kane, this is a good film to see him do his stuff. He was really good in it.
Yeah, James says creepy.
Creepy, definitely creepy. And speaking of people who are really good at being really bad, would you have guessed that from Angela Lansbury?
Oh, never.
Now, if you've seen The Manchurian Candidate, you know what I'm talking about.
I just got to tell you, everybody, this is the original Manchurian Candidate with Frank Sinatra,
Yes,
Janet Leigh, and Angela Lansbury.
And Leslie Parrish.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, oh my gosh, you need to just watch it in the daytime. Don't go to bed right after you've seen it, okay?
It's pretty intense.
It's really intense. It'll really hype you up. It really hyped me up, wound me up like crazy.
And without giving any spoilers, it's not terribly cheerful, which some of you will already know just from the premise of the movie. But
it was horrible.
But strangely enough, we'd never seen it. And the funny thing, of course, is that we've seen other films with that trope. They even call it the Manchurian Candidate trope. Zoolander, for example, a silly film, one of our favorites, but very silly. And yet, it's a Manchurian Candidate film. I think you probably know what I'm talking about. So,
yeah.
If you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen the original, strap yourself in. Put the toothpicks in your eyelids to force yourself to watch.
I had to watch one of my favorite bunny videos, Billy Bunny, doing a wonderful bunny dance to Classical Gas, the song. I mean, it is the best bunny video ever.
In case you're wondering what the connection Amy's making is, there's this overly charming video that she used as an antidote.
Yeah, it was an antidote video. And it's only a couple minutes long, but it's just so good. And but yeah, I really had a hard time shaking that feeling after watching Manchurian Candidate. It was nightmarish. It was so good. And it's one of those movies I think I will probably remember, even though I'll probably not want to. Although, I don't know. And I just felt such sad ambivalence because I love Angela Lansbury. Angela.
Yeah, it definitely, if you only think of her as from Murder, She Wrote, it definitely changes your associations a little bit.
Right. And, but she was quite villainous, I'll just say. And I'll just say this, that I predicted the ending of the movie before it happened.
Yeah, you said, I hope what happens,
blank,
and
blank,
it happened.
Blank, and it did, and I was but I was still struck by the whole thing.
Right.
I couldn't, it was such a destruction of values on a, it's one of those evil genius systematic nightmare things.
I still think of it as the J.K. Rowling idea, that if nothing really, really bad happens, then there never was a real conflict.
Yeah.
She would be asked, why did you kill off, my favorite character? I won't name names and give spoilers, but in the Harry Potter series, for example, there are significant characters die. In fact, some of the most significant characters die. And people would ask her, you can't kill that person off. Everybody loves that person. Rowling would say, you can't let that stand in the way of forming the story. And besides, if nobody important ever dies, was there even that much of a conflict? Was it even that big a deal?
Well, it's not just conflict, but there's value. There's values that are set up in the Manchurian Candidate that you would think, it's a hokey premise. If you know the premise of the film, it seems like that's not going to be believable. I'm not going to buy into the characters' values, and I'm not going to really care about the characters.
Yeah.
But you know what? No, I did. Totally bought into it.
Even if you're not thinking you're willing to go along for the ride, it's done well enough that you do go along for the ride.
And Frank Sinatra is a hell of an actor. Holy crap.
Yeah, he's really good.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, I guess he got nearly half of the production budget for the film was his salary.
Oh, good for him.
But Lord knows he earned it. So anyway, thank you for those recommendations. And as always, we are open to movie ideas. Usually we go for the lighter stuff, but
yes,
we're filling in some gaps. We've never seen The Manchurian Candidate. You got to see it eventually. Maybe someday we'll actually watch The Godfather.
I don't know.
Or maybe skip right to The Godfather 2. I may have seen those when I was very young, but I don't remember them.
I think I've seen them, and they're just, I don't know. I just don't really care about the characters so much in The Godfather. I don't know.
Now, we started late, and I haven't actually gotten to the meat of the episode yet.
What are you talking about this time, Robert?
Because the topic for the show of wives and cheeseburgers, time and turns. Well, we've gotten a little bit to the wives and a little bit to the cheeseburgers, and I mentioned that it came up on Facebook because
sounds like an incantation for Halloween.
Yes, intentionally. It was asked, well, what advice would you give somebody who's just about to get married? What marriage advice would you give them? And it was amazing how many people, and it's online, of course, people are being. But some of these people, you could tell they were serious, were, don't do it. Run. Walk away. I love marriage. I love the idea of marriage. I love being married. I love seeing weddings. I love everything about marriage except when people don't take it seriously, when they don't do it right. And I'm not saying that every marriage that fails is because somebody did something wrong. There are couples that just weren't meant to be, or things change. There's a lot going on there. But my answer to this was not, run. My answer to this was not, don't do it. My answer was, I gave a simple one. I've given many rules for a successful marriage, secrets of a successful marriage, but this one was simple. The things you did to win her are the things you'll do to keep her.
Oh, that sounds too simple.
It sounds simple, but the reason it came up is because I went on a bike ride yesterday.
Yes, you did. You were amazing.
And I haven't been riding enough lately. Now, folks who are regulars here, last year in 2021, I rode my bike every other day.
How many miles did you?
Well, except for a brief period on Easter morning when I ran into a telephone pole, broke my finger, took a little time off.
You realized that your fingers had bones in them.
I found out that, and not only that, but they're connected by cartilage, so you can also knock them out of joint without breaking bones, and they just, it's bad. It's a bad thing. So every other day when I could, and that included the winter. So I've got a winter bike that I ride in the snow, which means a cheap bike. I don't care that it gets all rusted out. I just oil it up again and ride it some more. This year, I haven't been riding as much. I haven't got in those kind of miles. Last year, I got in over 2,000 miles. Yes. I know for some of the riders out there, you're like, oh, yeah, that's normal for me. But for me, that was pretty damn good.
Oh, 2,000 miles.
2,000 miles. This year, not so much. I couldn't even tell you what the subtotal is so far. But I decided to get on that bike and ride yesterday. And the reason I mention it, why do you care about that? The reason I mention it is because you probably know, or should know, if you've ever fallen off of an exercise routine or gotten out of the habit of working out or just found yourself being less active, when you get back on that horse, it turns out it's not that hard. I have ridden some this year. But also, you forget, what some people like to call the endorphin rush. That big mood elevation that you get when you finally really break through. Mm-hmm. And that's real, and I don't mean to underplay the significance of hormones and endorphins. But what matters to me is that riding changes your state, and it's great for breakthroughs. I realized as I was riding that I know I've been too much in my comfort zone lately, and I got to break that. And I've known that, but when you ride, you feel it viscerally, and you know it in a way that's in your bones. You know it in a way that gets you to change. And I would encourage anybody out there, if you're, and this happens a lot as the days get shorter and we come into autumn, if you're feeling yourself slowing down or getting comfier, getting cozier, if you're finding it harder and harder to get to the gym or get on the bike or do those push-ups, whatever your routine is, do one session where you really push yourself. And yesterday was 20 miles, which again isn't crazy long, but it was long enough for me to break through and realize, oh yeah, this is what I need to be doing. Changing my state. And on my bike ride, I made a lot of notes, which initially I posted to Facebook and then immediately realized they made no sense whatsoever. Part of it because Facebook's and Apple's voice recognition aren't behaving.
Oh.
There was a long post by Donna Posdro, the architect, about this. And when you do that, you get these weird characters that show up, posts that don't make any sense, and the recognition isn't very good. My post here says, note to self, upsetting the Apple Card.
That means spending too much on your Apple Card, right?
Yeah, well, my Apple Card has a substantial balance, but it automatically pays every month the whole thing off. No, obviously that was me saying upsetting the Apple Cart.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did some corrections to it, but yes, changing your state turned into exchanging your state. I don't know for what. But I am working on this, and I'm working it out. It's going to be a show. Everything that I thought about on that bike ride. More ways to get yourself to do the things you don't want to do that you really want to have done. I don't know if you caught that there. There are things I want to do, but I don't want to do them. I just want to have done them. Mm. Well, obviously there's a contradiction there. That's not rational. So the question is...
Well, Howard Rourke says, you got to love the doing.
You got to love the doing. And if I don't love the doing, should I just scrap that? There are ways through. And it's getting into the idea of free will versus determinism, but also the question of, are some people born for greatness and others not? And I think when people say that, they don't literally, well, the better people, they don't literally mean born for greatness, came out of the womb and that person's going to be great. That person will never be great. But I'm brought back to the Fountainhead because the characterization of the four main characters, not counting Dominique in this context, is you have one man who could never be great, but he didn't know it. You have another man who could never be great, and he knows it. You have one man who was born to greatness, but didn't know it and failed to achieve it. And then you have one man who was born to greatness, knew it, and did achieve it. And without giving any spoilers, those are the names that are the four parts of the book, if you know the book. And it makes perfect sense. It's right out of Ayn Rand's journals, out of her notes for writing The Fountainhead. And yet that phrase, born to greatness, I don't think it implies intrinsicism. I think it's more a matter of, given the character that the person has developed by the time they are an adult. Not that that was intrinsic. But I've really been wondering about that. You think of Peter Keating. What would happen if you put Peter Keating in Gene Moroney's thinking labs? Could Peter Keating actually have a breakthrough? Could he actually have the potential to be great? His personality and values aside, could he overcome his limitations as this man who could never be great? Or I think of House, the television series, House MD, Gregory House, versus Anthony Robbins. I want to lock those two in a room. House, who says people never change. Nobody ever changes. It was a recurring theme in the television show. You would have somebody, for example, who was an addict, and he would get over the addiction so that he could get healthy again, and House would say, no, he didn't. Nobody ever changes. People will always be who they are. Versus
yeah.
an Anthony Robbins who gives you strategies for changing. I want to put those two in a room for a while.
Peter Keating is a tough one because, later in the book, after he visits Katie, who has turned into
someone else. She's dead by then.
You've got to remember what he did to Lucius Hire, and the kind of there are things that he did to Tim. Go out, spend time with your girl.
I'll take care of things here.
Yeah, all these manipulations and nearly villainous acts, or villainous acts. I don't know exactly. With Lucius Hire, that was pretty bad. There are certain things I don't know. He would have to really process. The kind of destruction that he created. I mean, that's really difficult. I don't know if he would ever...
Could he get over the guilt? It kind of refers us back to the ending of The Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah.
Which I won't spoil by saying anymore, but some of you will know that. But yes, I really want to analyze and understand this almost clash between psychology, which explains everything you do and think and the causes and the reasons, and CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, has an implied free will. But really, when I think of psychology, I think of these are deterministic answers. They're going to explain everything you did on the basis of some influence, your nature, your nurture, the things that happened to you, the influences on you, versus philosophy, which implies choices, free will, volition. So again, I want to capitalize on this clash. This is what I thought about riding my bicycle, my bike riding thoughts, upsetting the apple cart. Getting in a rut is a real thing, and you can't just use free will to say, I'm not going to be in a rut anymore. I'm going to be my best starting now. And yet, we can do that. And it takes steps and stages, and we've talked about that. We have to develop actual habits that move you in the right direction. You can't simply suddenly decide to be, I don't want to be Peter Keating anymore. I'm going to be Howard Rourke. The triumphs are real. The stops are real. Those moments where, oh my God, this changes everything. So I'll be getting a better handle on that. But in the meantime, yes, it is Wife Appreciation Day, and the things you did to win her are the things you'll do to keep her. Enjoy doing those things and never stop doing them, but change them up regularly and never stop wooing.
I'd like to say one more thing about the Manchurian Candidate.
Yes.
All throughout the film, I kept thinking about this. There is still just too many suicides of people who have been in the military, the armed forces in the U.S., who have died by suicide. But then I think, we've never been in a situation before until now where the stigma of mental illness has been lifted to the extent that it has. And I think back of, the times of when the Manchurian Candidate, after the First World War or Second World War, and during the times of the 50s, and, soldiers who served in whether it was in the World War II or the Korean War or even the Vietnam War after that, the kind of stigma they had as men, not reaching out and getting mental health help for themselves. And so I just think, I'm grateful, I'm glad that at least in America, and in a lot of other places, in a lot of different communities in the United States, people have embraced the idea of getting help for their mental health. And so I just want to say that. So good for you if you've ever been in a situation where you needed help in that way and you reached out and got it, and good on you.
Yeah, it's actually in the film too. It's kind of nice that they do eventually address that the mental health issues do eventually get taken seriously.
The only thing I would change, without saying any spoilers, is that those people who were victims of that situation, we didn't get to see them coming together at the very end and talking with one another and just being visible to one another. I think that would have been extremely satisfying and grounding.
It would have. It was implied, but it would have been good to see that.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, I am working on these ideas and these films and this bike ride and Wife Appreciation Day. As all of this coming together for me, I will be presenting more in the future as it all coalesces. But it's a real challenge. I've been pushing, folks like Tal Zafani to try to figure out what is the difference that makes the difference. All of the strategies I've had for self-improvement have had an impact, but sometimes they don't, or sometimes there's backsliding, and I'm always wondering, what is the difference that makes the difference? Is it just a matter of constantly applying will, or are there better strategies for maintaining a good course of action and making it stick? So, more of that in the future, more marriage advice in the future. I've got a few pages of it here that I intended to discuss, but a lot of these are reruns. We've talked before about secrets and the secrets of a successful marriage apply to most of your relationships. Your friendships, your relationships with your peers, your family, your children, your parents. For example, never ever sacrifice. Because you always see that. We've talked about that in wedding ceremonies. Prepare to sacrifice. No. Never ever sacrifice. Whatever it is you're doing, you're not just doing it all for her. You're doing this for yourself. And this was one of those bicycle thoughts. You're trying to make yourself a better man. What, just for her? You don't want to be a better man? You don't want to be the best man you can be? You don't want to be the kind of man she deserves for your own sake? Well, no, what I really want is to get big, lay on the couch, eat cheese curls, and drink soda and watch television.
And those nice Dove ice cream bites.
Now, those are only 60 calories apiece. You cut it out with the Dove ice cream bites.
That so adds up.
Yeah, well, if you eat enough of them. But the point is, yes, self-sacrifice is a disaster in marriage. I have seen this time and again, and it doesn't always destroy a marriage, but it's worse when it doesn't and people stay together with self-sacrifice as their standard.
I mean, kind of circling back to what makes a person attractive, and I know that you talked about this in terms of how a woman is attractive. It's her enthusiasm for life. Well, I think that also goes with men. It's their enthusiasm for life and enthusiasm for values. It might be strength also for men.
It may be even more so with men.
Yeah.
You're right. I framed it that way, but
besides that, you can't be self-sacrificing and hold on to your enthusiasm for your values.
Yes.
And in that way, you cannot be sexy to your partner. You cannot be attractive to your partner if you are selfless.
Right. We've talked before about the essence of masculinity is strength. The essence of femininity is hero worship, what I call enthusiasm. But the worst thing you can do, no matter how strong you are, is be boring. You absolutely need to have that. You gentlemen out there, you need to have that same enthusiasm, that same passion, that same joie de vivre. Because a woman may be drawn to your strength, but if every night nothing happens, and I don't mean in the bedroom, although that too, the worst thing you could do in that context is be buff and built and sharp and boring. So yes, you're right. It absolutely flips around, and it's almost worse to be a boring guy than it is to be a boring woman. Because a boring woman, maybe the guy will take that leadership position and say, let's go out to the movies, let's go out to the theater, let's go out and do things. But when the woman is desperate for the gentleman to, take me out. I don't want to go out, I had a hard day at work. Every night. So yes. There are two things that I did want to bring up because it came up in the earlier discussion. For those of you, again, we're in terms of relationships, and this can apply not just to marriage, but to any romance and really any family or business relationship. Two elements. One of them is bookkeeping, and the other one is mind reading. Some of you might be familiar with these ideas. If so, I hope you've taken steps to act accordingly. Some of you might not have heard these terms, and I think these insights are extremely valuable. Bookkeeping, I've mentioned before on the show. Bookkeeping is keeping track of who gave and who received, who did things and who didn't, who did the dishes and how often, who did the laundry and how many times, who's earning how much money and who's not.
Yeah.
Bookkeeping.
Or tit for tat is
Tit for
another
tat.
way of putting that.
Yeah. Rub your feet. I rubbed your feet last night, and you haven't rubbed mine this week. You know, one of my secrets for a successful marriage, it gets a whole post of its own on the socials, is the answer is always yes. Now, what did I just say? There should never be self-sacrifice in a marriage.
I may need the mute button.
Oh, we need the cough button. Hold on just a second, folks. All right. Good thing we got a cough button there. For that
Sorry, guys.
little bit of a cough there. Oh, are you eating eyeballs?
No, well, I was going to eat an eyeball so that it would cure my cough.
Okay. Yes, people are like eyeballs. I don't know. If you saw the show a couple weeks ago, Amy actually talked about she's got the eyeball gumballs as part of her Halloween preparations there. And gets to the joke with the gal with the glass eye.
Oh, what's that?
I don't even remember. It's an old joke, something about a woman stumbles and her glass eye pops out, and a gentleman catches it, and she says, "Oh, thank you so much." And they get to know each other, and they get on very well, and he's like, "Oh, I can't believe I got to know you, and you're such a wonderful person, and well, what was it about me?" And she says, "Oh, you just happened to catch my eye."
That's great.
So, yes, avoid bookkeeping. The answer should always be yes. It's eventually going to catch up. It's eventually going to turn around. If it doesn't, if months and months and years go by and you're like, I am never going to get as much out of this guy as he's getting out of me, have that conversation. Talk. And if you can't resolve it, it may be time to let it go. But nagging isn't going to fix it. That's one thing for sure. And that gets us into the second thing I wanted to talk about besides bookkeeping, and that's mind reading. If you've ever used the expression, well, he should know. She should know. She should know by now. I shouldn't have to tell her. I shouldn't have to ask. He should know. Mind reading is one of the worst expectations you can have in a relationship. It never, ever, ever works. It is part of the recipe for disaster. If you want disaster, you can write it out as a recipe. 1 cup of this, 2 cups of that, 3 cups of expecting mind reading. So yes, avoid bookkeeping, avoid mind reading, never sacrifice, make sure you're getting what you deserve. But the way you do that, talk, have the conversation, be willing to ask, be willing to talk. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Again, I've got pages and pages of notes, but I'm sure we'll have conversations in the future about relationships and marriage. Oh, the end of this says, keep the romance alive. It isn't always easy, but it's always worth the effort. Make it epic. And in that regard, yes, Amy and I are learning to dance. Now, I haven't been able to find the paperwork on that. So I was going to announce today that, we're doing this now every Monday night, or what our schedule is going to be.
We'll find
But I'm going
it.
to need your help with that. No, or we'll just call them tomorrow.
Yeah.
But yes, Amy and I are going to learn to dance. Well, I can't dance. Dancing doesn't come naturally for me. It's not really much fun because it's awkward all the time. But you know what? Amy deserves to be with a man who knows how to dance. So I'm going to make that happen. And you know what the funny thing is, guys, this is true, even though you don't want to, I certainly don't want to admit it, is that once you have a few breakthroughs, once you break through, just like the bike riding, once you break through the initial resistance, you're going to love it. well, I'm not going to love it. It's not my thing. No, you're actually going to love it. And if you think about it, you know you will. So do those things.
Now, Apollo Zeus, a.k.a. Chris, mentions...
Now stop giving people's real names. I'm sorry. I don't mean to. It's Wife Appreciation Day. I really appreciate how you try to get people to come out of their shell, despite their choice to be anonymous.
I mean, Apollo Zeus.
Yes.
He says...
And that's undoubtedly his real name, yes. Mr. Zeus.
Not psychologizing, but the ability to read people based on experience. I'm thinking in relation to mind reading.
Yeah.
Now...
Well, if you're like me and you've studied neuro-linguistic programming, you have no secrets from me. If I can see your face, I know what color underwear you're wearing.
Well, no. So there. I mean, there's a differentiation here, and it is contextual with regard to knowing somebody for many, many years, a couple decades or a few decades, and understanding what their facial expression means, usually that you can pretty much count on it, and you can count on what their reaction might be to whatever it is. And that's not mind reading. That is something that's experience, that that person's emotional context in a lot of ways, in a lot of experiences. Mind reading is something that is where you are, your expectations of that person are entirely wrong, and So
the disclaimer.
It's not a good way to build trust in that situation.
The disclaimer that should come with every conversation of this kind is there is a kernel of truth behind each of these failure modes. So the kernel of truth for mind reading is there are people out there who you've been with them a long time and they haven't even tried to get to know you. So they should know at least something about what your reactions look like. There are people out there who are simply insensitive or don't know any better. So yes, there is a flip side to that. Just like there's a kernel of truth in the idea of, what was I just talking about? Mind reading and, why did the word just escape my mind? I'll look through the notes here. Bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Just like there's a kernel of truth behind the idea of bookkeeping. What did I say? Marriage should never be a self-sacrifice. Neither side should sacrifice. And the reason why people fall into the trap of bookkeeping is because sometimes it's not fair. And sometimes you've eventually got to say, this relationship is way skewed. So yes, there is a kernel of truth behind these things. But the problem is most people don't approach it that way. Most people have irrational expectations, both in terms of what a fair relationship looks like and in terms of what their partner should know about them.
And once you have a vocabulary around bookkeeping and mind reading and all of that, and realistic expectations of understanding your partner and all, then you've got that. You're already there. You're already there. You're able to communicate. You're able to differentiate those contexts, and
Yes. So, thank you for joining us. My Post-it note for the week. I'm playing on the idea that, there are people out there who were born for greatness but never achieved it. And some people out there who were never going to be great and didn't even know it, etc. So my Post-it note for the week says born for greatness. And I've decided to test that theory. And I'm going to see just how good I can be. As I say, I'm going to get back on track. And that gets into my homework for the week. As always, I tell you what my homework for the week is, what my plan is for the week, in case you decide to do something similar. And this time, it's kind of customized for me because my previous morning routine has not been working. See, what happened is, I don't know, maybe a month ago, I had established an early morning routine, and I drifted into it nicely. I was getting up before 6 o'clock every morning, posting an aphorism Monday through Friday on Twitter. Actually got good feedback on that. People said they really enjoyed that. Just to prove, this was my way of being visible, of having accountability partners, just to prove that I was actually up before 6 o'clock in the morning. Every morning I would post an affirmation, and then I would run my morning routine. review my plan for the day, do my affirmations, my personal affirmations, complete a visualization exercise. This is what the day is going to look like. Do my exercise, and then write and journal. Well, as I drifted into that routine, it just happened that Amy, who is more of a night owl than I am,
very much so,
drifted more and more into her evening routines. And she was staying up later, and I was getting up earlier, and she was staying up later, and I was getting up earlier, and it's as not fun as it sounds. So Amy actually asked me maybe a month ago. She said, can we try to get our routines together, stop getting up so early, and I'll try to get to bed earlier, and we did that, and it was actually pretty good for a week or two. But what I'm finding is that, waking up later, it's for whatever reason, I have not been able to make a later morning routine work. So just for the remainder of this month, and especially for the next week, and that's why it's my homework for the week, I'm going back to setting a pre-6 a.m. alarm. So those of you who follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/Robert Nasir, you'll start seeing those affirmations again. I'm going back to waking up every morning before 6 o'clock, reviewing my plan, doing my affirmations, completing my visualization, doing my morning exercise, writing and journaling. Oh yeah, exercise too after 8 a.m. is much harder than it is exercising at 6:30. Go on the bicycle for half an hour. The bunnies are still out on people's lawns that early in the morning. So that's my homework. If you are finding that your morning routine isn't working out very well for you, or you just want to develop one or a stronger one, feel free to join me on this journey. Share it with us in the chat or in the 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir Facebook group. Come on the journey with me. I'll be presenting feedback on how that goes, and again, you'll know it's happening if you're on my Twitter feed, because you will see those affirmations every morning before 6 a.m. just to prove that, yes, Robert really did get up and out of bed before then. And that's it. That's the homework. That's the Post-it note. That's my thoughts on films and movies and relationships. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being in the chat. Sorry about the earlier technical support issues. Hopefully I'm going to find a way to straighten that out. Otherwise, I'll have to scrap the current version of the software, download an older one, and then tell it every time, don't update, because you suck. Now, I'm kidding/not kidding about that. The systems that we use, the 3 computers that I'm running here, are more than sufficient to the task, so it's frustrating that an update to one thing has caused that. Thank you so much for sticking around. Your patience will be rewarded. Was rewarded. That was the wrong expression. Your patience is appreciated. What's also appreciated is those of you who are supporting the show, and if you want to, what to do. Go to robertnasir.com. You'll see a link to Patreon. You'll see a link to PayPal. If you want to give us a couple dollars every month, price of a cup of coffee. Buy me a cup of coffee. Buy Amy a cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be blunt. We need more supporters.
Do we?
And yes, we do. We need more supporters, and we are.
Amy's blunter than me.
Ramping up with some new ideas, some new expectations for the show that are going to be much more far-reaching, much more quality, just
great things are coming.
Great things are coming, and we need your help. We need your support. And please become a Patreon.
Well,
a supporter every month, $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever it is. But yeah. Even
more important than that is if you like the kind of thing we do, if you enjoy this, spending an hour, 5 minutes, whatever it turns out to be that particular evening, share it out. If you think there was something informative, useful, inspiring, or just amusing, share it out. And that is very much appreciated, those of you who already do. I always say we can double the income if we can double the number of viewers. But yeah, if we can increase the percentage of viewers who are patrons, that would be great, too. Show notes for this episode are already posted in the description on YouTube. I will upload the episode to Facebook with apologies to those who are used to watching the show there if you're having to catch the recorded version of it. That will happen. And thank you for being here.
Yes.
As always, we wish you, and I do mean you know who I'm talking to, because I am talking to you, We wish you every success that you have earned, all of the joy and happiness that you so richly right now deserve. And as always, we wish you love.